Hey everybody, Darren here from the Single Dad Zone. I hope you're all having an awesome Monday. So I wanted to talk to you about something I watched over the weekend. I saw an episode of ESPN, I think it was called E60. It was on the Ryan Leaf life story. So, I wasn't planning on watching this. I just happened to find it at the start and it just captured me. I couldn't turn it off. I watched the whole thing and I felt that there were just so many life lessons to be taken from this really awesome show. So Ryan Leaf, who was he? So Ryan Leaf was a star quarterback. He was actually the number 2 pick in the NFL draft. Peyton Manning was actually picked first. So Ryan Leaf was a superstar in high school, just destroyed everybody. Went to Washington, was a superstar in college. He's a huge guy, and he has a lot of, and I'm going to talk about a lot of potential that came with him. And he decided he'd rather, in his words, go to San Diego for the booze and babes instead of going to Indianapolis. And he offended the Indianapolis Colts by intentionally not showing up to an important meeting that Peyton Manning showed up to. He was a Heisman candidate, so he was the best of the best, elite quarterback. I mean, he had an incredible career in front of him, and then he just threw it all away. He got addicted to prescription pain medications, and it affected him mentally. It affected his performance. He was terrible in San Diego. He was a journeyman quarterback for a while before he was eventually driven out of the NFL. So he went from the peak, being one of the top, a franchise quarterback in the NFL, making millions of dollars a year, being drummed out of the NFL, and his problems with drugs continued, and eventually he was arrested and spent almost 3 years in jail. While he was in jail, he had time to get sober, think about his life, and realize all the mistakes that he made along the way. And he found his cause in prison, which I think is very rare for someone to come out of prison better than they were before they went in. But he came out of prison with a cause. He wanted to help other people suffering from addiction, and to also help people to not become addicted in the first place. He talks at schools. He talks to NFL recruits. He uses his story to help teach people and to show them that the things that he did and ultimately that led to his downfall can be avoided. So I thought there were 5 great lessons to teach your children from this story. The first, the obvious one, drugs are bad. So his addiction caused all of his problems. Caused him to lose out on making millions and millions of dollars. It led him to jail ultimately, and even though the story doesn't end as poorly as it could have, he still ended up in jail and threw away his entire football career. So you can't reinforce enough the problem with drugs in society, the problem with addiction, and I think you need to start teaching your children young about these problems and how they can ultimately lead to complete devastation. The second lesson that I thought was really good that I learned from this was to be humble. Even in high school, he was very pompous. He was an ass. He turned a lot of people off because of his poor attitude. He thought he was the best. He disrespected people. He disrespected his teammates. He disrespected his coach. There was one scene they talked about at Washington when he was in college, and the coach called a particular play, and he just blew the coach off, ran his own play, and ultimately that play worked, and he just came back strutting back, with his pompous attitude, like, look, I know better than everyone else in the world. So he refused to listen to people. He had no humility. He didn't take advice, and that was part of the reason for his downfall. So it's very important to have humility, to be humble. Even if you have incredible talent, it's very important to be humble and respect your elders, respect your teammates, respect your peers, no matter what. So being humble was another lesson that I took from the Ryan Leaf life story. The next lesson was your potential never will beat hard work. You can have the greatest potential in the world. If you don't work, you're not going anywhere. And they talked about how in college he was a man among boys. I mean, he was genetically gifted. He's a giant guy. He's enormous. He's really tall, really big. He's built like a running back. So in high school, he was able to crush everyone. In high school, he was, faster, stronger, bigger. But that was because of his genetics. And he didn't have to work hard because he was so much stronger and bigger than everyone else. When he got to college, same thing. He was still stronger, bigger, faster than everyone else. So he had a lot of natural born potential with his genetics. But when he got to the NFL and he didn't want to work, his potential didn't take him anywhere. He couldn't just rely on, hey, I'm the biggest guy, I'm the fastest guy, because in the NFL, everyone's big, everyone's fast. So if you don't work, your potential is going to not take you anywhere. You could be the smartest guy in the room, you could be the strongest guy in the room, but if you don't work, you're not going to succeed. And I think that's a really important lesson to teach your children, that no matter how fast they are, no matter how strong they are, no matter how smart they are, if they don't work, they're not going to go anywhere. And that's probably one of the most valuable lessons. I think my dad really instilled that in me, that it doesn't matter. You don't have to be the smartest guy. You don't have to be the fastest guy. You just have to be the guy that works the hardest, and you can beat almost anyone. The next lesson that I think is really important to take from this is, just because you fail doesn't mean your life's over. Your failure is something that you can learn from. And he had a huge failure. He just completely threw his entire life away. Everything, millions of dollars, all these contracts and everything he had, he just threw it all away. He ended up in jail, but he found his redemption in jail. He found his cause. And just because his NFL career ended and it seemed like his life was over, it wasn't. He was able to start over again. He found a new cause, a new meaning for his life. And as long as you learn from your failure and you move on from that failure, then it's not a bad thing. He said he was making $5 million a year with the San Diego Chargers. And when he got out of jail, he was making $15 an hour. And he said that he felt greater personal worth making $15 an hour than he did making $5 million a year, because he was doing something that he felt was important. He had a cause, and he found that the end of his NFL career and going to jail was not the end of his life. It was just the start of a new chapter. And that's really a great lesson, that just because something ends or because you dramatically fail, it doesn't mean that life is over at that point. It just means you get to learn from your failure, you pick up, and you move on. And the last thing that I felt was a great life lesson is that live in the moment. He talked about, and this was his quote, all I have to worry about is today. He was a tremendous failure, and that's in his past. He can't worry about the past. That's over. Can't fix it. His future, he doesn't know what the future holds, but he knows that in this particular day, he can make this the best day ever, because that's the only thing you can control is the present. And a lot of times I think as kids become teenagers and become a little bit older, moving into their 20s, they start to really focus on the future, and they worry so much about it. But really, there's not a lot of control you have over that future. You can make plans, you can set goals, and you can work towards them, but really the only time you can control is the present. The past has happened, you can't fix it. You can learn from it, but you can't fix it. The future hasn't happened yet, so the present, you got to live in the moment. So there are just so many great lessons from Ryan Leaf's life story, and I just wanted to pass on 5 of them that I thought were really important, and I'm definitely going to pass them on to my children. So like I said, the obvious one, drugs are bad. They can destroy your entire life. Number 2 is to be humble. humility is it's so important. No matter how good you are at something, no matter how smart you are, you need to be humble and respect others. Number 3 is, potential means nothing if you don't work. You got to work if you want to get anywhere in life. Number 4, the end is never the end, as long as you learn from it. The end can be the start of something new and incredible. So you just have to learn from your failures and move on. And number 5, live in the moment, because that's the only time that you can control. The past is in the past. The future hasn't happened yet. So you just have to focus on what you can do today in this particular moment to make your life better. So those are the 5 great lessons that I thought that are worth passing on to my children and passing on to you guys to think about. And I really appreciate everybody checking out Single Dad Zone. I got some good stuff coming this week. I got a big announcement on Wednesday. We got Workout Wednesday. So we got all kinds of cool stuff coming up. And eventually I'm working on a complete revamp of my website so that it'll be the Single Dad Zone. And I'm really excited about that. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.